The year is 1521. There is much turmoil in Sayyidpur, which is a dusty little town in the northwestern part of the Indian subcontinent. A powerful invader has swooped down on northern India from Central Asia by way of Kabul, Afghanistan. He has laid waste the entire countryside, killed thousands of innocent men, women, and children. A band of captives is being led to what is essentially a prison camp. And in that throng is a 52-year-old man with great dignity of bearing, with his companion, who is maybe 10 years older than him. This man is Guru Nanak Sahib, the first guru or master of the Sikh faith, and his companion is the Muslim minstrel, his friend Bhai Mardana, who has accompanied him on all of his journeys and with whom he sings the praises of the Lord. Both of these old men carry heavy loads on their heads, and then they're made to operate huge manual mills to grind corn and wheat. Guru Nanak Sahib is a mystic, a philosopher, a saint, but he's cut from very different cloth. He's also a social reformer and a revolutionary. He is in Sayyidpur. As part of he halts in Sayyidpur as he returns from a long journey on foot to Mecca and Baghdad. In Sayyidpur lives a humble carpenter whose name is Bhai Lalo. And Guru Nanak Sahib, after witnessing the wanton destruction and loss of human life perpetrated by Babur, who goes on to become the first great Mughal emperor of India and establishes a dynasty that rules India over the next 200 years. This is what Guru Nanak has to say, addressing his humble follower, Lalo. This was the hymn that you just heard the children sing, which was sung in essentially the same musical scale that Guru Nanak Sahib uttered the hymn in and Bhai Mardana sang the hymn in. And let me give you a bit of a flavor for what he's saying. Jaisi mein aaye khasam ki bani, taisara kari gyan ve lalo. O Lalo, as the Lord inspires me, thus I speak. Paap ki janj le kabulo taya jodi mange daan ve lalo. Guru Nanak Sahib uses the imagery of a wedding, albeit a very gruesome wedding, to describe what Babur has done to Sayyidpur in northern India. So he says, this very strange bridegroom at the head of this wedding party of sin has swooped down upon us, and as his wedding gift, he wants our homeland. Sarv dharam due chhap loe kood phire pradhan ve lalo. Shame, righteousness, these have all retreated, and evil struts around as if he owns everything, as if he's the chief. Kaziya Brahmana ki gal thakki agad pade shaitan ve lalo. In normal weddings, the Hindu priests, the Brahmins, and the Muslim peers or the Qazis, they officiate. But in this wedding of death, Satan is the one who officiates. Musalmaniya bade kateba kasht mein kare khudai ve lalo. Babur is a Muslim king, but he doesn't spare Muslims. Muslim women cry out in pain, and they read the Quran, and again they utter the name of God, Khuda, Allah, asking for relief. Jat sanati hor hindwaniya, evi lekhe lae ve lalo. High-born Hindu women, low-born Hindu women, all of them cry in agony Instead of the joyous songs that are sung at weddings, sing the song of blood. Instead of the beautiful saffron paste that is applied to the brow of a bridegroom because it's considered auspicious, today, put on a mark of blood on your forehead because of what has happened. This hymn is important because it illuminates the character of Guru Nanak Sahib. He was not a holy man who was content to meditate on God and tell people to meditate on God and forget about the world. No, not at all. He wanted everyone to be part of the world, to be aware of what was going on. Let us reflect on the condition of society at the time of Guru Nanak Sahib. Earlier, somebody talked about their parent fleeing apartheid in South Africa and coming to this country. Well, in the 15th century, what was in place in India was divinely ordained apartheid. There was a rigid caste system, which may have had a rationale thousands of years ago, but it had really calcified into this horrible social order where those at the top of the social order oppressed those at the bottom. And let's talk about the nature of the oppression. The Brahmins, the priestly class, were the only ones who were entitled to learn and utter the holy texts. If a low caste person heard a Brahmin uttering a holy text, he could be punished by having molten lead poured into his ears. If a low caste person uttered the scriptures, his tongue could be cut off. Al-Biruni, who was a Muslim traveler who visited India, has this to say about the customs of the caste that he observed. He just talks about how they eat together. On the eating custom of the four castes, he says, when eating together, they form a group of their own caste, one group not comprising a member of the other caste. Complete separation from every point of view. Let's talk about how women were regarded. The Manusmriti was an ancient text which was considered to be the wisdom of God. And I quote from the Manusmriti, "A woman has no divine right to perform any religious ritual, nor make vows, nor observe a fast. Her only duty is to obey and please her husband, and for that reason alone she shall be exalted." Divine wisdom. This was accepted as divine wisdom. Tulsidas, another great saint of the time, writes in his writings, "Dhor gavar shudra pashu nari, sakal taran ke adhikari." Let me translate. It's very telling. It gives you a sense of the social condition. Animals, cattle, the ignorant, the low caste, drums, and women are all deserving of being beaten often. This was the world that Guru Nanak Sahib was born into, rife with caste distinctions. Oppression was rampant. Women were considered non-entities and had no rights. Let us reflect upon what Guru Nanak Sahib had to say. When he was 10 years old, a priest was called to his house. We're talking about 1479. A priest is summoned to his house to invest him with the sacred thread that all high caste Hindus wear. Guru Nanak Sahib was born into a Hindu family because there was no Sikh religion then. This 9-year-old child looks at the priest and says, I'll just read a couple of lines in Punjabi and then share the gist of what the hymn means. Daya kapa santokh sut jat kandi sat vat eho jnev ji ka haita pande kat. O priest, if you can fashion a sacred thread out of the cotton of compassion, if you can create a string out of contentment, if you can tie on it knots of self-restraint, and if you can twist it with truth, give me such a thread. Do you have a thread which is not going to break, which is not going to get dirty, which is not going to get burned when I die? If you have such a thread, give it to me. If you don't, I don't want it. A 9-year-old child. As he grows older and he looks at the condition of women, this is what he has to say. In his great writing, the Asadiva, which Sikhs read in the morning, Pand jamiye, pand nimiye, pand mangan vyaho, pando hove dosti, pando chale raho, pand muwa, pand paliye, pand roe bandan, so kyo manda aaphiye, jit jame rajan. So here he says, of woman we are born. In a woman we are conceived. Every man seeks to find a woman of his own. When his wife dies, he looks for another woman. Women are the one who propagate the race. Women are the one who give birth to kings. How dare you say that a woman is less than a man? And the important thing is that Guru Nanak Sahib didn't just write these things in isolation and then put them in a book for people to read. He created institutions. One of our young people, when talking to the little kids when the question of food came up, talked about the Guru Ka Langar. The Guru Ka Langar is one of the great institutions that Guru Nanak Sahib created, which was absolutely indicative of his commitment to social justice and equality. I've already painted the picture of caste distinctions. In those days, it would be sacrilege for a high caste person to eat with a low caste person. Guru Nanak Sahib created the institution of the langar, or the community kitchen, where anyone who wanted to enter the Guru's court would first have to sit on the floor, not knowing the caste of the person to their left or their right, and eat. What a beautiful concept. An implementation of equality. When Babur's grandson, the great Emperor Akbar, who was very different from his grandfather, visited the third Nanak and wanted to enter his court, this great king of this huge empire was told, you can't go in. Sit in the langar and eat first. Then you shall be admitted into the Guru's presence. Guru Nanak Sahib created missions, as did the Gurus after him. And to these missions, he appointed both men and women. So he was a mystic and a thinker and a social revolutionary who not only put forward these revolutionary ideas 500 years ago, which seem so self-evident today, but they were not self-evident then, and then proceeded to create institutions to make sure that these ideas would live on after him. One of the institutions that he created was the institution of the Guruship. When he passed away, when it was time for him to leave the world, he passed the mantle on to one of his disciples, who became Guru Angad, and referred to himself as Nanak, as did all the Gurus after him. So I'm going to skip forward and take you to 1699, where the 10th Guru, the last in the line of 10 Gurus who succeeded Nanak, took Guru Nanak's mission of compassion and his commitment to social justice and created the ultimate institution for the Sikh Panth, the Order of the Khalsa. So in 1699, he baptized his followers, gave them this distinct identity that you see on me and other practicing Sikhs, and dedicated this entire legion of the pure to social justice. And given the constraints of time, I'll just share with you one thing that he gave to us, that every baptized Sikh wears on his person every day of his or her life, as a reminder of their commitment to always fight oppression in every form. This is the kirpan one of the 5 symbols of a baptized Sikh's faith that they always carry on their person, which is an everyday reminder to them that no matter where they see oppression, no matter who the perpetrator is, no matter who's at the receiving end, the duty of a Sikh is to stand up against that oppression. In conclusion, Guru Nanak Sahib was a mystic, a dreamer, a poet, a social revolutionary, an architect of lasting change. And if we were to ask ourselves today, what is the relevance of his message? The caste system has somewhat disintegrated. A lot of these truths are almost self-evident now. Do we still need this commitment to compassion and social justice? Well, of course, it was a rhetorical question. We do. We absolutely do. We look around us, even in this wealthy country, we see poverty, we see hunger, we see inequality, and step out of your comfortable environments, and there is so much to do. There's a litany of tyranny all across the world. Babur is gone, but his successors are alive and well. And anybody, every Sikh certainly, and anybody else who has a commitment to social justice needs to remember that the message of Guru Nanak 500 years ago is as urgent, compelling, and relevant today as it was in the Dark Ages.